You're listening to Conversations with ClubRight, the podcast where we delve into what it's like owning a business in the fitness industry and offer practical insight to help you grow and thrive. It's been a challenging few years for us all, so join us every Tuesday for new episodes where we talk about everything from member retention in the economic climate we're currently in to building a long-term growth strategy for your club, as well as stories of when I ran my gym. So, I'm your host, Wayne Heath. Looking forward to getting into this episode. Welcome back, listeners, to episode 4 of Conversations with ClubRight. And got an exciting one today. What we want to do is kind of talk about some of where things have gone, customers' expectations, what members feel is different, what their thoughts and feelings are post-pandemic. I think it's changed an awful lot. So I think we need to kind of look at, now we're getting closer back to normal, and God willing that continues to be that way, which would be fantastic, of course. But, we want to look at the impact that we believe and what we're seeing with customers has certainly had across the board. That's the kind of experience we're seeing. And I've got a fantastic guest here who's got a wealth of experience with independent gyms and the fitness industry, and also has the awesome job of heading up customer experience for ClubRight. So I'm going to introduce you to Paul Jouanny. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. Really excited to be able to take part.
Yeah, and we can have a bit of fun. We can have a bit of chat and talk about the things that we see on a daily basis, and hopefully we'd like to think we'll have a few nuggets of useful information that someone can take back to their business as we go through. So I suppose from all our listeners' points of view, who's Paul Jouanny?
Okay, so yes, I've been working now with health and fitness facilities for what is coming up to 20 years.
Whoa.
I've always had a customer-facing role. I've always really enjoyed dealing with the customers. So I've performed various roles for various organisations relating to health and fitness, account management, project management, more recently, head of customer experience here at ClubRight. And I love talking to customers. I love finding out, what makes them tick, what makes their business tick, trying to solve any pain points they've got, and delivering good service and good outcomes. And more importantly, actually, for me, is our customers are often a great source of innovation, and here at ClubRight, it's something that we do pride ourselves on, is being innovative. And, where does most of that come from? It's through listening to customers. So, it's an invaluable part of the process as we grow and develop our business, is to understand our customers deeply and, really get to know what issues and problems they're facing. And as also, what is working for them. And,
exactly.
So it's been a thoroughly enjoyable ride. I've seen so many changes over those years, and look forward to seeing what's coming up over the next few years also.
Fantastic. Well, I think most importantly, you're a great member of the team, Paul, and I think that insight and that experience really shows through, because listening to customers, we know, as much as we've got some great ideas between us, don't get me wrong, we're not the fountain of all of them, are we? At the end of the day, we kind of
absolutely right. And
we got a reasonable direction, but
we may think we know what our customers want, but do we always get that right? So the only way to prove that is talk to them and listen.
Yeah, and I think you're a fantastic advocate of that, and I think it's where that listening headset, 20 odd years of experience, as you just said, I have to say, you don't look it, Paul, looking amazing as
Thank
normal,
you.
But, the reality is, 20 years of experience is so valuable in this world. We've got startups joining ClubRight who have never opened a gym before. They might have been a personal trainer, or they're opening up the doors. And we've got fantastic software, but ultimately it's a bit more than that. We are here to help and guide, to try and eliminate some of the pitfalls that we might have seen other customers make in the past. So I think that intro is absolutely perfect. We really kind of sows the seed about what you're about as an individual and
Yeah.
how that impacts ClubRight.
And for me, the biggest accolade we can have as individuals doing what we do is that we effectively become that business's trusted advisor.
Yeah.
So that they feel comfortable and confident in talking to us, not just about the core services and products that we offer, but actually just sometimes to chew the fat, float ideas, talk about subjects that, although technically and officially we're not the subject matter experts according to what we offer.
Yeah.
Like how can I get more members in my gym? So those types of conversations that I often have with clients say, hey, it's a really privileged status to be considered such a trusted advisor that they actually come to you for advice about all manner of elements of their business.
And that's really powerful at the end of the day, Paul, because people need to have trust in the people they work with. People trust their accountant, they trust their doctor, solicitor, and all those other people. Now, I'm not putting us in the same genre as a doctor, a solicitor, or an accountant, but we are a trusted advisor in terms of general stuff that happens in a club, and that's kind of leads me nicely into, I suppose, what kind of evidence have you started to see where members' expectations are changing? Where the members of a club, what are they looking for? What's different? Have you got some kind of examples of what you've been seeing?
Yeah, so I could go right back to the beginning and say there's been a number of changes and expectations from that point.
But it's all relevant, though. I mean, where's that story started? I think you may as well mention it.
Well, I guess anecdotal, but I was in favour of an anecdote to illustrate the point. So I remember, and it always stands in my mind. This back in late 2005. I was invited to go and meet one of our existing customers, a fairly standard independent gym, 12, 15,000 square feet, had just under 1,000 members, had a pool and a sauna and a steam room, was charging about £45 a month for membership, which was pretty typical back in those days. And he said, I want to try something new. So I went up to Leeds to sit down and chat with the business owner. And he said, let me show you around the gym. So we went around the gym and said, right, I'm stripping that out. I'm filling in the pool. I'm going to fill it with more kit. I'm having a refurb. And I'm also going to drop everybody's prices down to $19.99. So I'm thinking, wow, this is kind of revolutionary. And this kind of stuff wasn't heard of. Firstly, such a low membership price, and then taking out what was considered back in those days to be prime facilities, sauna, steam room, swimming pool, and totally revolutionising his business. And I must admit, that first hearing, I thought, you're mad. You're going to more than half your revenue overnight, right? You're going to take this step of more than half your revenue. But actually, I look back now and I think you were an innovator, right? Because that business was the very first iteration that I saw of what is now a common business practice in the health and fitness industry, which is a low-cost gym. And very soon after that, then others started to follow. And then we saw one or two, the big corporate chains coming along and establishing themselves and growing very rapidly. So along with that new business model, which, by the way, was very successful. He managed to increase his membership base by significantly more than the loss in revenue. So he ended up coming out and he's on top. He reduced his costs, his overheads, the hassles and challenges that you tend to face with such things as saunas and steam rooms. Yeah. And he remember chatting to me, it's the best thing I've ever done. And they went on to expand to, in the region of 30 odd sites.
Wow.
But so it was, that was the first kind of example that I saw on a personal level of changing expectations, because that kind of set in members' minds that actually, gyms didn't need to be unaffordable anymore. Gyms could be within the reach of pretty much most people. I'm sure.
And they didn't necessarily need to be cheap either. With the word affordable is quite an important point, because if you look at how so many independent clubs, certainly that work with us, Paul, we've got P clubs that have gone 24/7,
Yeah,
access powered by ClubRight, meaning that they can reduce their staff costs, which means they can maybe reduce their membership price to make it more attractive, but not necessarily cheap. Now, the word cheap is actually a recipe for disaster, but something that's affordable, and taking away the swimming pool is a great example. Getting rid of the
yeah,
thing that's costing a fortune to heat with the cost of electricity right now is most probably not a bad shout. But the facility, if it's got good equipment there and it's a place that people can then gain access at different times of the day to an affordable payment, they will do it, won't they?
absolutely, absolutely right. And I think alongside obviously then the that kind of business model comes the need to drive some efficiencies.
Yeah.
And I think one of the biggest contributors to efficiencies has been technology. So
Yeah.
that has been the most significant change that I've seen over the
Yeah.
years is the increasing use of technology. Um, and that spans most areas of the customer journey
It really
effectively.
does. Yeah.
That's the joining, the attending,
Yeah.
even the leaving, the
Yeah.
purchasing, the bookings. It really has delivered a vast amount of
Mm.
change in the industry. And for me, that's the biggest
Yeah.
single standout.
No, I think you're 100% right. And that technology side of things to take away almost what is the mediocrity. I'm not saying you don't want to personally face to face sign someone up, but the fact that you don't have to sit there with a laptop or then have to handwrite a direct debit. And I've done that, press hard, 3
Yeah,
copies, we've been there. And all of those things. Now you could actually show the customer around, allow them to then join on a tablet device themselves, and off they go. You could then be getting on with something else at the same time. The customer's got all their details in a secure manner. They can download their members app. They can start booking classes. They're off. And if you think, I honestly, the amount of work that my wife and I used to do in our club in the early days, it absolutely horrifies me to even think of how we did it. It's just
oh
crazy.
yeah. Well, we again, back in a former role, we employed literally an army of people to manually enter paper mandates. There was an entire industry focused on getting somebody's membership form, typing it in, including all the misspellings, inaccuracies, or
Absolutely, yeah.
I read that right in. So, again, it's been a big change, and I remember meeting resistance. I was forefront and foremost in releasing an online joining platform for gyms. Again, pretty much the first in the industry. So we come back to that innovation piece.
Yeah.
And I was having conversations regularly with independent gym owners. We've launched this new product.
Yeah.
Trials have been really successful. And it's all about hands-off joining your gym. If you've got a website, we just provide you with a link. You
Yeah.
can direct your members to that link and they can join in the comfort of their own home. They don't even need to tour your gym, have a look around, touch and feel. And I remember so many conversations where the reply was, "That's never going to work. That's never going to work. They need to come in. They need to come in. They need
Yeah.
to see my treadmills and
Absolutely.
my strength machines, and I
I
need
need
to
to
tour
take that
them."
£50 joining fee cash in front of me now.
Exactly. And you show me a gym today that doesn't have the option to join online,
Yeah.
and they are the big exception. There's
Exactly.
possibly one or two private members type clubs where you've got to know somebody to get in, but pretty much without exception, every gym now has that facility available. So
Yeah.
that sort of rapid growth in paperless element of
100%. And if
managing a
I
gym.
think you look at what COVID, pandemic, whichever name you want to give it, that has had a lasting effect in so many ways. If I look at where, as a business, ClubRight, when that door closed that Boris entertained for us, you sat back and went, what the hell are we going to do now? And the number of businesses, whether it's gyms or not, but the number of high street businesses, gyms that survived on that door being open and someone handing over some, some folding material called cash. You sit there thinking, they're dead. That absolutely stopped. No one ever foresaw that. But the interesting part is that so many people now have totally embraced it. Even
Yeah,
the hard-nosed cash people, a number of our customers still felt that way. They've gone beyond that because they were forced to. So I think it's moved things forward a lot quicker in
it
everything
it
that people
has.
do.
It has, and it was a you'll remember the day as well as I do. It was a really that Boris announcement that day. It was a really worrying time.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Suddenly, everything was thrown up in the air.
Yep.
Nobody was quite sure for how long this was going to last.
No,
Was it going to be a couple of weeks? Was it going to be a few months? And suddenly I can imagine there was probably more meetings held that day, the day after, across businesses up and down the land, suddenly going into
yeah,
kind of crisis mode. What are we going to do? Can we
yeah,
continue? Can we continue? I'm
absolutely.
sure that was a question that was on many of our gym owners' minds because
And ourselves at ClubRight, it was like, oh my God.
yeah. And of course, without gyms, we wouldn't have been able to continue irrespective of what we pivoted to. So I think, it was an incredibly worrying time, but you're absolutely right, Wayne. I think it did force people to completely review their business
Yeah,
model, the way that they conducted business, the journeys that, the user, consumer, member journeys that they'd incorporated previously
indeed.
into their
Yeah,
businesses were suddenly on up for review. Um,
indeed.
and despite everything, there was probably some massive efficiencies gained during that period.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think it's quite the recurring income that, is obviously the buzzword, the thing we talk about. And actually, I did a seminar at the Independent Gym Owners Group last week in Solihull. And it was a full house in my seminar. I was quite chuffed. And it was amazing how many people were genuinely engaged in the idea that recurring income is the way forward. It's the way that a business is sustainable, is knowing that you've got some money coming in on a regular basis, and the one-off payments, they're Brucey bonuses, whatever name you like to give it, but that's nice to have. But I think the pandemic's meant that technology-wise, it's given us the needs that people want and have to use for their business going forward. I don't think it's a case of not even trying to walk away from it now. I think they actually genuinely feel that they have to use it. Now, if you
Yeah,
look at the new clubs that we get started, pretty much every day of the week, everyone is straight away engaged with direct debit card bookings. Where's my online portal? Where's that going to connect to my website? Where's that going to go to my socials? It's a totally different experience. And every time
very
people are
much.
saying the same thing. I'm sure you'd agree. They're not
Very much. Yeah,
they're not
very much.
thinking about, can you send me some printed direct debit forms, please? And when I run out, can I have some more?
Yeah, and I think that works not only with the business itself. Of course, you've got the member experience, and of course, one of the biggest pieces of technology that's increased with all things health and fitness is apps, and whether that's apps for your gym,
Mm,
where you can carry out various activities such as joining, making payments, bookings, seeing how busy the gym is, and so on and so forth. You also can get fitness workouts delivered through app. You
yeah,
can get health and fitness advice through apps. You can get dietary advice through apps. So a big piece of the industry is now focused on that thing that we've all got in the palm of our hands on a
absolutely.
on a regular basis, the
Indeed.
mobile phone. And I think, Wayne, um, that was one of the things that kind of allowed you to continue your business successfully throughout the pandemic, was that that embracing of that whole end-to-end joined up technology circling, including the app.
Yeah, I
Um,
suppose it's a bit like you're kind of bringing into someone's front room the ability to join a class that they used to do in the club on
yeah,
Zoom. Something we built, and I do kind of underestimate that sometimes, Paul, because we built that in 3 days
yeah,
and delivered it, and then that meant even though gyms were closed, they could carry on doing what they were doing, and actually encourage new customers in. I think that's where it kind of that leads on a little bit nicely to the changing expectations we have of customers now. What are their expectations? I mean, the thing is, and it's a point in question, is that during that period, I know we're talking about COVID a lot, and it does feel like a dim, distant memory. And thank God this Christmas we don't fear that someone's going to actually shut it down. That's probably why everyone's so excited about it. I'm guessing more so this year I've noticed than previous. But the reality is that if you look at things like people and say online classes, that was something a lot of people never really gave a thought of before. But now it really is a thing. And I think there's a lot of people out there who, out of there, may well have had a busy family time, trying to juggle work time, family time, and everything else, but could never juggle that bit of time for them. And all of a sudden, during the pandemic, everything, Mr. Wicks doing his star jumps on stage, you had everything kicking off there. People could see and touch and feel things in a virtual manner all of a sudden. It really, for a lot of people, and they're still doing it, and we see a lot of customers still using on-demand content that ClubRight can provide and the Zoom classes, because their position's not changed. They still actually can't get out of home at the right time because of work-related issues or family issues, picking up kids or looking after their children and working at the same time. There's all manner of different things going on, right? But that person's position hasn't changed. But the sheer fact that the pandemic allowed them to do stuff they couldn't do before means it's been embraced, isn't it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think extending the gym to outside the four walls, it was a critical part of a business's survival during COVID, and I think it's still an important part today. You're absolutely right. One of the big legacy items of the pandemic has been that shift to home working. Recently, of course, we've seen a few businesses demanding that people do come back into the office, but again, that's typically not full time necessarily. It might be right. We want you in 2 days a week as opposed to, your 5 days at home. There are a lot more people whose lives revolve around their homes, and the ability for them to carry on engaging with that health and fitness facility at a time that they choose from the comfort of their own home will often be, drive retention much more successfully. So again, it seems, we could all view now that actually there's no need for online classes anymore, right?
Yeah.
Pandemic's over, everybody can now return to a gym. Well, actually, that's not strictly true for everybody. And, there are many people who could get down 5 days a week because the gym was near their work, for example. Now more and more from home. So therefore, they love the gym, they still want to engage with it. But by being flexible and offering that as an option, then, hey, you could prevent cancellations, And
that's an interesting point. Talk about expectations here. I was talking to one of our clients that's got quite a number of studios. And typically, their studios were quiet between the hours of 11 o'clock and maybe 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's totally changed. Because people couldn't go to take their lunch break to do a class because they actually weren't anywhere near the studio. They might have gone early in the morning or later in the evening. Now they've got a piece of the day which was completely dead time before that's actually very well filled. Equally with more customers that are available because more people are working from home in that sort of hybrid environment.
Yeah, I agree. And, is off peak becoming the new peak?
Exactly.
We have seen, the typical usage graph in a gym was, 6 o'clock to kind of 8 o'clock in the morning, busy period, and then it drops like a stone. And then we used to pick up at 5:30 all the way through till 8 or 9 o'clock, and there were 2 peaks, and in the middle was a big flat trough, which was when most gyms typically had their off-peak memberships to try and fill that space. But now that kind of that drop in the curve, that has actually smoothed right out, and it's as often as not, it's not far off a kind of straight line throughout the day, and almost hitting the peaks of the traditional peak times as they were. I think there's there's a case perhaps for some facilities
Off-peak's
to
dead.
just
Off-peak's dead.
just to review the
Yeah.
need for an off-peak. Are you potentially giving away more money for
And actually,
our
what you just said is a really good point there, picking up on that, because it
Mm.
was typically what, we're not going to get any much money anyway, so we may as well charge lesser amount for that
Yeah.
time. But like you've just quite rightly said, the prime time is most probably that time, more so now than before. So why should someone have an off-peak membership? They should just have a membership that allows people to have great value, good access to classes or the facilities that they want to enjoy during the hours that might have been previously known as off-peak.
Absolutely.
Because until we just talked about it, I hadn't actually considered it as much as we have just done now, because that is so important, because that is just dead time, isn't it? That now you would have chucked loads of money. I bet there's loads of clubs out there still supporting an off-peak membership, supporting customers that had an off-peak membership and actually are giving away money.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in the past few weeks. I've been on site to a number of gyms, and I was typically going to meetings kind of 11 a.m., 1 p.m., 2 p.m., and they were busy. They
Yeah.
were busy. I never used to see that. I would walk in to gyms at the traditional meeting times in the daytime office hours,
Yeah.
and there'd be one or two people rattling around. But I'm surprised. Well, I shouldn't be surprised anymore,
Yeah.
but I'm always surprised now when I go to gyms during those business hours, the office hours, traditional office hours, just how busy they are.
Yeah.
So I think again that's been a big change in expectations.
No, definitely. And I think, talking about it openly, I think hopefully people are picking up on that. Really, that's worth looking at in your membership armory. Do the membership plans you currently provide are the right set of solutions for your customers at the times of day that you're open? Because let's be fair, the cost of turning that light on and heating that building is no different, doesn't matter what time of day it is.
Yeah.
Except for the summer, of course. I have to put that to one side, right? But at this time of year, the heating's on, the lights are on, the cost of running that business is no different, irrespective of the time of day, right?
Yep.
And if you're giving away a membership for less, maybe that's worth reviewing that, to be honest. And it kind of leads me on to another question, I suppose. If you think about a survey by Home Communications found that 87% of consumers say that they will spend more money with a company that demonstrates social responsibility. So have we seen clubs do a bit of this, do you think? Have we kind of seen this social responsibility thing coming in?
It's an interesting area, social responsibility. So I think we probably all became aware of this concept when it was typically branded as corporate social responsibility, right?
Yeah.
That was, it first came to my attention probably 10, 15 years ago. It seemed to be the new buzzword. What's your corporate social responsibility policy? And in actual fact, a business's social responsibility, and I'm glad we've not used the word corporate in this instance, because I think if you bolt on the word corporate immediately, a lot of small businesses can think, right, don't need to do anything, doesn't apply to me, not interested. Whereas actually, social responsibility in a business, it's actually been around for hundreds of years. So if you catch, it goes back to the Industrial Revolution, where you had certain business owners, certain corporations, Rowntree's in York, for example, providing wonderful housing estate that was gloriously landscaped and really looking after their staff. That is effectively social responsibility from a business. And to me, the definition of social responsibility is doing good for the community, right? We are very much social people. We're very much social communities. Word spreads very quickly around a community, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
So I think as a business, even a small business, even if you're a one or two man band with a small membership base, I think there are elements of social responsibility that can apply to your business and can deliver benefits. Let's stop thinking of it as just being something that only corporations need to worry about. So going back to one of our points about doing good in the community, then a lot of it, about being nice. So, looking
Dare I
after your
say it,
stuff.
being pleasant
Yeah,
to someone.
be,
Wow,
be, be,
God.
be pleasant. Getting a good reputation for
Yeah,
being a nice company to deal with. So,
yeah,
how do you react to customer complaints? How do you
yeah,
react to customer queries? Do you bark at them and tell them where to go, or do you actually take it seriously, listen to them, understand them, and deliver a response that's warm and appropriate? So some basic fundamental steps we can do to contribute towards the concept and policy of social responsibility. And that's without tackling anything, more tangible. And for example, in a small business, then, do you treat all your staff fairly? Do you not have, make sure you don't have gender pay gaps, for example, the
yeah.
same people doing the same job, not paying the man more than the woman, etc. Ensuring that you treat your staff well when it comes to issues that they might have with life. And
Mm,
let's face it, it does seem that increasingly, people are having more issues. There's a lot of financial trouble and strife around at the moment.
yeah.
And I think we've got to be mindful of all of these things as a
Mm,
business. Things crop up. We have homes, families, and you might have a very strict policy. Right, you need to give a month's notice before you can have any leave. Right,
yeah.
okay. Something could happen. A disaster could happen that needs that immediate attention. So if you're going to stick rigidly to your policy,
Mm,
is that really going to help anybody?
exactly.
It's certainly not going to assist your staff retention, and
No,
we need to look after our good staff.
and we
Um,
got good examples of that. If we've got a member of staff that needs to go and collect their child at the right time of day from childcare or play school, whatever that might be, or school, we work with those kind of things because
we
we
do.
feel that's the right thing to do. That same person might actually start earlier, may even finish a little bit later to make up the hours, and that individual doesn't actually want to shirk their responsibility to do their job because they enjoy doing their job. But what they did want was just someone to understand that there's times when I just need to shoot off and do that. Is that okay? And everyone knows. And I think it's quite an important point. It really is because flexibility is a lot that we've learned. And I think by giving a little, I think, I'm being, potentially you could argue selfish here. I think I get a whole lot more back by being that reasonable kind of approach. And that sort of,
Absolutely.
it makes a difference. I mean, we both
Yeah,
see it all the time, don't we, Paul? At the end of the day,
we we do. We do. And I think the benefits for the business in adopting a people focused approach, say aid retention of your staff, you will keep your good stuff for longer. And there are times when, as a business, you just need everybody to muck in and
yeah,
get
yeah,
through
yeah.
a potentially difficult situation.
It's
If
all
you're
hit the
calling
fan. We need to work.
exactly, and if you're calling on somebody to give you an extra hour in the evening just to get through this problem, if you've treated them well in the past,
Yep.
they're going to be far more willing to jump in and help you.
Yeah.
And I've seen that over the years. So my management style has always been to be very mindful of the fact that we deal with people and human beings, and
Yep.
we need to adapt, change, and learn to stuff that's going on out there.
Yeah. And you've got different walks of life, different backgrounds, and all those things come into consideration. And I generally think that it's recognized now to be more logical and thoughtful towards those situations because if you're not, I just don't think people work as hard, if the truth are known, because I actually feel not just because this is a post-pandemic thing, although I do think it is more heightened awareness more since then. 'Cause I think people have had time to think what they really want to do, which I don't think is a bad thing. We've all been in that place ourselves. But reality is that it just means that people understand and work better as a team. I think one of the things there's one of our customers who I won't mention his name because he's going to be coming onto a podcast shortly, but he's ex-military. And one of the things that I love about the military is purely and simple. And I know how process driven you are, Paul. And having a process for it is so important. But the difference in business is that if the process fails, no one actually dies, potentially. In the military, the failed process means someone could die. So the stakes are much, much higher,
Very true.
significantly higher, right?
Yeah.
And from time to time, the worst that process can cost you in business might be money, and if you can see that, work with it, have the right idea to recognize that, you can deal with it, can't you? But no one's actually died. You know what I mean? It's really, really hit me home when that person told me that, and I thought, makes a lot of sense. Really makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. As I say, I think we, as small businesses, we do need to look at social responsibility, and it's not just about jumping on the bandwagon. It's not
No.
just about adopting that buzzword. It's actually because some of these things can deliver us real financial benefits, real brand, real brand promotion benefits, and these are practical things that shouldn't just be considered box ticking. I really feel that we should adopt, some social responsibility as a fundamental tenet of our business operations. And this can apply, as I say, to your 1-2 man band owner operators with very small membership base, right up to your big box, more corporate style entities. And people often say, well, okay, what does it mean? What can I do? What could I do in my my social responsibility area of the business? And I think for me, there's a number of areas you could break it down. There's no right, there's no wrong. And the environment is obviously a big big talking point nowadays. Climate, global warming, etc. And so on a practical level, there, your supplies, your consumables, using recycled, using green products. Some of these can often be more cost effective than standard products. And there's a whole range of companies now out there offering these type of products. You've got participating with fair trade companies. Again, going back to consumables, the products that you sell, is there an option to go fair trade? And then you can promote the fact that you're offering fair trade products. We've got the diversity element, the inclusive element, and ensuring all people receive the same and equal treatment, be that staff or your members, so that actually, skin color, sexuality doesn't matter a damn.
Absolutely.
We've got the potential for a charitable element. That could be volunteering, that could be having a kind of regular donation approach, so that a certain proportion of your revenue, your membership income, etc., can be donated to charity. You can bring that right down to a local level, so that your members feel as though it's going to the immediate community.
Absolutely.
I think that's. It's great to be able to help the community, and your business will benefit in that community as a result.
And it's happy staff, isn't it? At the end of the day, like you said, if you've got happy members of staff, that will reflect on the members that enjoy the club, and it all comes through. And you can easily see, you can always pick up an underlying theme if things aren't quite right, or something's gone wrong, or maybe it hasn't been handled with as much sensitivity as maybe it should have been, whatever that item might have been, and staff will always sing the virtues of whether that was a good business or not. So it totally makes sense. I think moving on is a point of thinking about, for Salesforce had, 69% of consumers said that the convenience was more important than brand loyalty. So it's an interesting question there. So do we think that gyms can strive towards a more convenient experience?
So convenience is, again, I think it's an increasing demand of society, which has largely been driven by technology. But that's not the be all and end all. Increased convenience expectations has also come from the pandemic. There's a number of areas that you can consider, what constitutes convenience when you're applying it to the health and fitness industry. And, that could be flexibility on payments, contracts,
Yeah.
etc. So again, looking back historically, when I first started, the majority of gym memberships were fixed 12-month contracts,
That's it.
if not longer, actually. They were
Yes.
maybe
Yes.
two,
You won't
two,
talk about
3 year contracts.
that.
And the only way you could get out of those contracts was literally to die, right? Because,
Never a
there
good
was,
option.
yeah, it's not a good option. Um, well, consumer expectations have
Yeah.
changed very
Mm.
much, and I think we've got to, you've got to offer flexibility. So you've got to offer a no contract option for those members that just don't want to commit. And often the reason they don't want to commit is because, in a changing world, they're not quite sure what's going to happen in 6 months.
Yeah. That's fair.
Will they be forced to move? Will they come out of work? Will their financial circumstances
Good
change?
point.
So a lot more people are reluctant to commit to longer term contracts. So I think we must all consider that flexible approach, and even to perhaps even more shorter term memberships. Maybe even weekly.
Yeah.
But I think that's one of the biggest changes I've seen in expectations in under the bracket of convenience, the convenience of choosing my package that's going to suit me as a
Yeah.
as a person, my
And you could argue
circumstances.
that also with more people working in a hybrid manner, let's be fair, have laptop will travel, right?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
doesn't really matter where you are. So
no,
if you still want to be a member of a gym, you might be in a gym, I don't know, in one town in the UK and then decide to move to a totally different country, still carrying on the same job, but you now need to use a gym in a different country, for example,
yeah,
or a different town within the UK. It could be, but it's that flexibility, isn't it? It's that convenience about having not to be tied to what we believed had to be done in the way that it had to be done. And I think that's
yeah.
really, I think it's quite a big takeaway, to be honest, from a lot of what we've talked about today. So to
So
kind of wrap, sorry, go on.
oh, go on. Sorry.
No, 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 we're going to jump all over each other now. It's over to you, Paul.
Yeah, I was just going to say the other big thing about convenience for me is opening hours. So
Interesting.
we've seen just in our business, right?
Mm,
The rise of the 24-hour gym. That's carrying on from my previous role. I saw more and more gyms going 24 hours. So that again, convenience, the members can turn up whenever they want.
yep.
And there are people, I've seen usage stats, there are people, crazy people that work out at 3, 4, 5 a.m.
Yeah,
It happens. So
yeah.
again, giving your members that option, that convenience to exercise whenever they want to, is going to drive more business your way.
So I think we kind of look at so much good content I think we talked about today. But if you were to give a club one particular top tip from Paul Jouanny's item to look at changing, what do you think that might be?
So I think for me, the most important thing a gym business can do, and it ties back to something we touched on earlier in the conversation, and one of the main parts of my role, right?
Mm,
Listen to your members, talk to your members, not only talk to them, but listen and
yeah, yeah,
understand. Because again, you may think you know what your members want, right? But have you actually taken the time? And you might do this in a very structured approach. You might have surveys going out, but as often as not, I think get on the ground,
yeah, yeah.
literally go up and talk to people, find out what they think of your gym, find out whether they feel there's anything missing from your gym, find out whether there's any membership options that they'd like to have seen, find out if there's any, new products they'd like you to sell. Are they buying a whole heap of products online
Yeah, yeah.
just because you're not selling them.
That's a very
It
good
might
point.
be
Really love
a
that.
range of protein shakes that they
Yeah.
really like, for example. So I think, and you're missing out on revenue. So yeah, deeply understand your customers. For me, is the best piece of advice I could give to a gym owner. And I think if you do that, your business will benefit no end, both
Love that.
financially and in retention.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's never a true word has been spoken, I think. And I think everyone would be really pleased to sort of have that kind of support with knowledge that is backed up by over 20 years of experience in the industry. So, Paul, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been an absolute
awesome
pleasure.
episode, and I'm really, really pleased we had a chance to talk about some of these things, because the off-peak thing really, really has made me think, and I've actually not thought about it like that before. And that's really, I've got that for me personally. It's a big takeaway, actually. So love that. So in terms of if people wanted to find you, Paul, where would they find you? How would they find you if they want to have a chat?
Okay, so I am on LinkedIn. So if you search for Paul Jouanny, you can drop me a message on there. I'm very happy to connect with you. So if you want to send me is it a friend request on LinkedIn or is it a connect? Whatever it is, right?
It's a stalker, right?
It's a stalker. I guarantee you there is only one Paul Jouanny on LinkedIn. So
fantastic. And I know there's only one Paul Jouanny. No, I'm not going to go into that song.
There's only one Paul Jouanny. Thank Christ, many people will say. But yes, there's only one, so that should be pretty easy to find. I guess the hardest challenge is to spell my surname, which is Jouanny for the benefit of everybody out there. And I would be delighted to connect with you. And just, if you just want to ask anything, chew the fat with me, I'm more than welcome it. Love to chat.
Fantastic. Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you as a guest today. And have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. We really want to help as many business owners in the fitness industry as we can. So if you know someone who could also benefit from listening to our episodes, remember to share it with them. That's really important. I want to get that message out there. And if you're enjoying conversations with ClubRight, hopefully you are, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.